Hello and welcome to Strange Stories. It's great to have you here. We are all about sharing stories of near-death experiences from around the world in the hopes of bringing some light and inspiration to your day. Our daily videos offer a glimpse into what lies beyond this life, and we believe that they can help us all appreciate the gift of life a little bit more. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest videos. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to grow. And to our returning viewers, welcome back. We're thrilled to have you with us again. So go ahead, grab a cozy blanket, get comfy, and join us for today's incredible near-death experience story. My name is Barbara Bartolome, and I've spent the last 40 years in Santa Barbara, California. I grew up in Salem, Oregon before that. And my near-death experience, which is actually two, and I only knew about the one I remember, which happened when I was 31 years old. I had no idea about the one that occurred during my childhood until my older brother, my oldest brother, told me about it when I was 55 years old. He had witnessed my death when I was 18 months old and had witnessed the entire process. And I eventually started breathing again, and the ambulance took me to the hospital. So my parents told him not to talk to me about it, and so did my other siblings who were older than me. So I never found out about it because no one told me. But when I was 31, I was in Santa Barbara and had a near-death experience as a result of a myelogram that I was having done at a local hospital. A myelogram involves the injection of iodine dye into the base of your neck. That's where they were doing it for me, into your spinal cord, because they were doing an X-ray type of test to see if that disc that blew out of my lower back where I was having surgery the next day had chipped my spinal cord, and if I was losing spinal fluid. They were going to have to repair that the next day as well. So they were testing me the night before the surgery at the hospital before performing a laminectomy and discectomy. Unfortunately, the X-ray tech was working on the machine with another person to complete the entire process. He pressed the incorrect button on the machine, and instead of raising my head and lowering my feet, he pressed the incorrect button. So he lowered my head and raised my feet, and the dye that had just been injected into the back of my neck quickly entered my brain. I was up on the ceiling above my body in about a minute, looking down calmly. I had no idea what was going on. I knew I was panicked in my body before I left it because I was hyperventilating and I knew something was wrong. But once I was out of my body, I looked down and thought, if I'm up here and my body's down there and he's calling code blue, I think I just died. And as I said that, I felt the presence of what I thought was God next to me. And I wasn't particularly religious, but I was spiritual, and I believed that spirituality stemmed from that first near-death experience because I'd always believed that God existed. I didn't need to go to church to figure that out. My parents did not attend church. I went to various churches, but I always had the feeling that that wasn't the real God. That made me feel like a man, and that didn't sit well with me. So I went to talk with my friends, maybe to that church, maybe to experience it, but I never felt connected. I felt directly connected to God and didn't believe I needed anything in between us. So what ended up happening was that the neurosurgeon and orthopedic surgeon who were in the room at the time of my near-death experience went into a panic mode because I had died unexpectedly. And they were giving orders to the two X-ray technicians and the nurse who were present. And the nurse in the room was calling for an oxygen cart, a defib unit, and a heart monitor on the phone, saying, "Stat, stat," and the oxygen cart arrived. They had been performing CPR. The two X-ray technicians had been performing CPR on me. The oxygen cart arrived. They attached the oxygen mask to my face, so they stopped blowing into my mouth, but they continued to perform chest compressions. And this man came in with a small box, which he placed on a shelf behind the table I was laying on, and he began. I was watching all of this from above, and I was talking to the being I felt was God, saying how much I wanted to return to my life. And I had been in a very abusive relationship for 7 years with a husband who would fly off the handle and get upset over the smallest of things. And he'd hit me, push me, kick me, shove me, and yell at me. And he was doing it to my oldest son, who was about 8 at the time. So I asked the being if I could return to my life because my little baby daughter was only 5 months old if I left. And if I left both children in the care of their father, my son was from a previous marriage that I had quickly divorced. But if I'd left the children in the care of their fathers, they would not have grown up to be beloved and cared for, and they would have most likely been abused by the second husband. So I asked to be allowed back into my life so that I could protect them. And I'd say I was dead for about 10 minutes. And the neurosurgeon said to the orthopedic surgeon at the end of the time when they started, when they did actually resuscitate me, too much time has passed. She's going to be brain dead. We must take action. And the orthopedic surgeon told them to keep their distance. And by the way, I had seen my actual flatline, the guy with the small box on the shelf. It was a heart monitor. And when he connected it to me, I actually saw my own flatline occur. So as the orthopedic surgeon advised, keep your distance. And he used his fist, swung it from behind his back, and landed really hard right on my chest. And I observed my body's reaction from above. I wasn't feeling it. It didn't hurt either, but I noticed my body jerking because he'd struck it so hard. And up above, the being to whom I had repeatedly expressed my desire to return finally spoke in this very, very gentle and loving voice. And I just felt like I was wrapped in this beautiful blanket of love up there. I would have preferred to stay if it hadn't been for my children, but the safety of my children came first. But if you go back, you'll still be in your marriage, said this lovely voice. What are your plans? And showed me these film clips that just went flash, flash, flash in front of my face. And it was all because of the current husband's actions that I was in danger. And after they all finished, there was this quiet moment where I reflected on all the things I'd done to try to help him change his behaviors over the course of our marriage, from writing a letter stating that I would not accept the abuse to threatening him with divorce. I relocated for a year, and he begged me to return, saying he had counseling, but he didn't. During my time with him, I took him to a marriage and family therapist. After 3 or 4 sessions, he had rejected that person. I took him to a church pastor. And after 1 or 2 sessions, he said, I'm not doing that anymore. And he was always sorry after he did the things, incidents, and so on. But he would always say that he would never do it again and that he was deeply sorry. But it would happen again the next time he was angry. So as I considered all of that and all of the things I'd done to try to help him change, it became clear to me that he did not need to change. It was my responsibility to change. I needed to stop accepting the situation. And even though I was terrified of him, of moving out, and of what he would do to me, I needed to do it. So I told the being that if he let me go back, I would get strong enough to leave him. And the doctor did the second precardial thump, which is the strike to my chest, the second I said the word him. They only do it as a last-ditch effort to restart someone's heart with a powerful blow, because it may trigger the heart to begin beating again. When they get the defib unit in there to shock the chest with the defib unit, they strike it with their fist as a last-ditch effort. It almost never works. It worked for me the second time, and I just said him. I'll get strong enough to leave him. And as soon as I said his name, I was back in my body. I was just up there 1 second, and the next second, I opened my eyes, and I was back in my body. And I was wearing an oxygen mask on my face, and of course they were taken aback when I opened my eyes, and I asked, what just happened into the oxygen mask? And the nurse leaned over me and said, stop, don't talk, we need to stabilize you. So they did whatever it took for 20 minutes to stabilize me. Finally, they removed the oxygen mask. The neurosurgeon and orthopedic surgeon were also present. The x-ray technicians were both at the top of the table. The nurse stood beside the 2 doctors. There was another nurse in the room, and there was the guy with the heart monitor in the room. Another nurse was standing by the phone. What just happened? I asked. I was perched on the ceiling and could see and hear everything. Oh, brother, said the neurosurgeon. And that, at the age of 31, I had never done anything wrong. When I was younger, my mother worked as a police officer, and I never drank, never smoked, and never did drugs. I wanted to be taken seriously. And I said, no, I saw everything. You said it to him. He said it to you. And this person said it to you. Then I told him everything that had happened in the entire room while I was lying there flatlining. They were all stunned, but it was the neurosurgeon who clenched his fist next to his body as I spoke, and he drew them up next to his body, saying, I'm not going to stand here and listen to this. And then he stormed out of the room. So he was very concerned about my ability to tell what had happened while I was unconscious. Everyone else stayed after the orthopedic surgeon and the neurosurgeon left. And the orthopedic surgeon gently took my hand in his. Tell me what happened, he said. Where were your thoughts? What was your experience like? As a result, he was inquisitive and interested in the situation. And then, when I was ready to go up to my room, they put me on a gurney and took me there. Then, no one in the hospital would tell me what had happened. In fact, the neurosurgeon and orthopedic surgeon were both present in the recovery area after the surgery the next day. "What happened last night?" I asked. "What was it?" Because it was very concerning to me that I'd never heard of or read about anything like that before. And the neurosurgeon put his hand up and went, "I'm not here to talk to you about that. I've come to speak with you about your surgery." And so I was very limited because, people would just they didn't want to say anything about it because it was the hospital's liability, because of what happened with the person who pushed the wrong button on the x-ray table side. So when I told my abusive husband that later that day, when he came over with my little baby daughter and son, he said, "Well, that couldn't have happened. That was most likely a hallucination." That shut me down even more, so I avoided discussing it with anyone for about 12 years. Finally, I told a nurse friend of mine, a woman, about it. Barbara, she was the one who told me it was called a near-death experience. Many people have experienced these. These things happen in the hospital, and there's a lot of information about it online. So if you Google it and go to a couple of the websites, you'll learn more about it. That is precisely what I did. And I was asked to attend a conference for the IANDS Association, which is headquartered in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, and I got to meet about 50 other people who'd had near-death experiences at that conference. And we sat in a big circle, and each individual described their near-death experience. As a result, I heard all of these other people, and having it happen to me validated it for me because I never heard of it before. So this was something that, 15 years later, I finally got used to. As a result, I founded a support group for people who have near-death experiences here in Santa Barbara. It is affiliated with the International Association for Near-Death Studies, or IANS, and they have groups in Seattle as well as throughout the United States and Europe. Meetings are held by group leaders such as myself. I perform mine once a month. We also bring in speakers who've had near-death experiences. And we also have a support group with a leader, which allows the experiencers to talk with one another and find comfort in the situation they've been through. So that's what I'm doing now that I'm no longer a university professor, and I attend all of the conferences. And I'm also open to people calling me if they've had an experience and discussing it with me. As a result, I keep my door and my heart open for those individuals. So that's what I'm doing with my life right now. That, I realize, is my true goal. And my husband is very supportive of me in this endeavor. So it's a wonderful thing that I feel I'm doing for others. And I really want people to understand that it's a completely natural occurrence. And you can't, expect everyone to understand it. But if you can come to terms with it, it becomes a huge gift in your life. So that's what I'm trying to do. Tell them about it. I firmly believe that now that I've had this experience and been able to, adapt it into my life, we're here for more than one life. I believe we're here to develop our souls. And we come in different lives to experience being different colors, different religions, or different sexes. And by doing so repeatedly, we gain experience and develop our souls. And I truly believe that love is the only way for this world to emerge from the negative and hostile situation that it has been developing over the course of centuries. I truly believe in finding love for everyone, not seeing differences, being kind, and finding ways to reach out and touch someone that day in order to help them in some way. Even if it's just a smile to a shopping cart baby. Be the person that you'd want to be able to see your life review at the end of your life and say, "Wow, I touched a lot of hearts in my life and I did a great job at that." That, I believe, is our primary focus. We should not be concerned with money or having a large house. If you have all of these characteristics, look for ways to use your money to help others and do good in the world. I just think we should all be thinking about how we can be better humans, better kind people, better helpful people, better loving people, and better accepting people. So that is what I believe is the most important thing you can concentrate on. It's not about the mountain of Christmas gifts under your tree. Instead, how can you find someone each day who you can touch in such a way that you feel you've given them a gift or something, even if it's just a smile or a touch of your hand, and say, "How are you doing today?" and caring about them. There are so many people who require it, so that's what I like to do, and that is what my life is all about.